Hello and welcome to the InsideStylist Podcast. I'm Emma Morton-Turner and you're listening to episode 36, How to Write Great Copy with the Copy Academy's Cate Butler. So this episode is literally jam-packed full of fantastic advice about writing copy. I've been writing for a very long time, but no one ever taught me how to write features or write for magazines, or even how to go back through my copy and look at it to improve it. And that is what Cate talks about in this episode. And I found it absolutely fascinating. I think it's quite a common thing in our industry that you work your way up through the ranks. You do work experience, you do your first assisting job, then you style, write features, maybe you become a home editor or an editor. But no one sits and talks you through how to write copy for magazines. You just kind of come to the job with your GCSEs or A-levels. And there is a whole different way of looking at writing. And I have just loved every minute I've spent talking to Cate about this. Now, she has a copy academy and I'm part of it, and I've learned so much from it. I can't even tell you how much I've learned from it. I'm loving it. And I massively advise everyone who writes to go and join her academy, because when she talks about other people's writing, you learn from that and you kind of think twice about how you're doing things, whether it's features for a magazine or a blog post you're writing, or even your Facebook and Instagram posts. You just you edit them in a very different way, and it's a massively great learning curve. So if you sent questions in for Cate to answer, then listen up, because she answers them all, and it's a really, really useful episode. Anyway, I really hope you enjoy it. Today's guest, who I've known for a few years, I say this quite a lot, but we haven't actually seen each other in the flesh for a few years because everything's online now. She's a journalist, a writer, and now a very good copy coach. Today's guest is Cate Butler. Hello, Cate.
Hello, Emma.
Thank you for having me in your lovely home.
Thank you for having me on your lovely podcast.
We've known each other for a while because we worked together at Woman and Home. Do you want to say what you did at Woman and Home?
Yeah, so I worked in the features department, so I was deputy features editor, and my main job there was doing all their celebrity interviews. So that was my, so I had to get all their celebrities booked up and then do all the interviews and write them up, and then I also worked on features generally as well, and involved in kind of what features went into the magazine.
Yeah,
really.
It was very celebrity led, wasn't it? There was always a celeb on the cover.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Were you on all the cover shoots then, or did you do the interviews afterwards?
I did not all the cover shoots. I did the kind of like the one at the beginning where you had to do the kind of 5 celebrities, and so I went on pretty much all the shoots. Yeah, I did go on a couple of cover shoots, which was fun.
I can imagine. Not stressful at all.
Not stressful at all.
That's what I imagine, because obviously I was in the homes department, but everyone says working on a magazine is really glamorous, and you're talking celebs and shoots with celebs, and actually it's not glamorous. It's work at the end of the day. It's nice. It's a nice job, but it's not all the glamour that you would imagine.
It's certainly not all the glamour, actually. Everyone always assumes that it's a very glamorous job, and I was like the least glamorous person on magazines at all. So yeah, no, but it was good fun. It was really good fun.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I had some lovely years there, and you over on the homes desk.
Yes, the lovely homes desk. So maybe it would be worth mentioning a few people you'd interviewed. I was thinking I've interviewed quite a lot, actually. So they're really varied. Obviously, at Women at Home, they're mainly women. So there would have been people like, Karen Brady, and a lot of the kind of like main kind of like household TV celebrities like Hermione Norris and Brenda Blethyn, and then other than that, I do a lot of people like Jo Malone. I've interviewed her a few times, actually, and actually my favourite interview with her is I did candle making with her, which was lovely. Wow!
And
we shot her house for Woman at Home.
Did you?
Yeah, she had a flat with a rooftop garden. And she showed us how she does takeaways, and she just gets a takeaway ordered when she has friends around, and then she sets the table beautifully, but uses takeaway, so it's no pressure.
Oh, wow.
And it was just such a lovely shoot, and she was just lovely.
She's so lovely,
really
isn't
down
she?
to earth.
She's one of those people I feel like, you're really successful in business because you are such a wonderful person.
Yeah, 100%.
Really loved her. And Mary Berry's, I went to lunch at Mary Berry's house, which I loved.
Oh my God.
She made me lamb. and rosemary shortbread. Yes. So lots of people, and David Attenborough.
David Attenborough, wow.
Roger Moore, quite a few.
Goodness me.
Yeah. So yeah, it's funny actually. I often forget because actually when
you think about
it, you would interview maybe 8 people a week. And then, you'd do the interview, you'd write it up, and then that would be gone, and you'd completely forgotten about it.
You've got to move on to the next one.
Yeah,
it was fast-paced,
wasn't it? People remind me, oh, you spoke to so-and-so. Oh, yeah, I did interview them. So
how did you get into writing? Did you study something to teach you how to write?
I was always loved writing, always wanted to be an author.
From very young?
Always. I was wrote my first book when I was 6 or something, and I illustrated it. And
that's so lovely.
But I didn't actually want to be a journalist until I didn't know what I wanted to be. I just wanted to write, and I ended up becoming a journalist because I actually dropped out of university and then got a job at London Institute and saw they did journalism degrees, and I thought actually maybe that does sound okay. So I did that. And then left and had to get a job, so I went and did lots of freelancing around BBC magazines when they had those in those days, and worked on BBC History magazine and BBC Good Food and what other magazines? Eve.
It's quite interesting, because obviously this podcast is very much based around interiors, but as an interiors stylist and writer, you stick to that one kind of genre.
Yeah.
But as a writer, you can literally turn your hand to any topic and write about that topic.
Yeah,
it really opens up a big world, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's just about research. Because obviously my first full-time job was on Country Living magazine, which is an interiors magazine, but the features section, if you're familiar with it, is all about kind of
kitchen table entrepreneurs.
Yes, exactly. Or you might read. I remember I wrote on my piece all you need to know about beavers. things like that. It was so varied, and
so I now know where to come.
Exactly, I know a lot about that, and I used to write Breed of the Month. That was my first column.
Breed of the Month.
So it's different, rare breeds, of, farm animals.
Did you enjoy that?
Well, it was
your
interesting.
What would be your favourite thing to write about now?
I love people. I love interviews, and I love people, and I love I love kind of getting to know people's stories and just finding. It's about when you're interviewing people, getting to the essence of what makes them tick, and I love that. And I think I do also love kind of writing more kind of thoughtful pieces. I do a lot of stuff with the simple things, and they might randomly say to me, can you write a piece about playing truant and the joy of playing truant, for example, and then you'd have to come up with a story. Yeah, exactly. Come up with a story in your life where you've kind of been relinquishing all responsibility. And, it's just that kind of, writing about interesting ideas. And so,
Is it quite hard to find people for things like that? Like case studies and... finding case studies can be a really tricky job. It can be so more time consuming than actually writing a feature. But you get so many different ways, and you can kind of find people. You get used to being very, very resourceful and relentless in pursuit of the right case study. Gosh, the things I've done to find the right case study for various magazines. But you kind of know people who know people. I think that's how it kind of works, isn't it?
Ends up actually how you can, and particularly when you're under a lot of pressure and you've got a deadline, it's amazing what you can do and what you're willing to do to who you're willing to call.
We kind of got back in touch. I mean, it's not like we lost touch, but we kind of got back in touch through Women in Business, which is... do you want to tell us about Women in Business?
Yeah, Women in Business, it's a kind of membership platform for women across the world who, not just entrepreneurs, but they could be just wanting to be successful in their career. And it's really focused on kind of empowering women and teaching them leadership skills and teaching them the skills that they need to kind of be successful in this kind of new business world. Because everything is changing with online business and everything. So it's kind of really about connecting and engaging with other people doing the same thing as you, and also kind of education as well. So I got involved with it about a year ago through the founder, who's Ramonda Jan. I can't pronounce her surname, I'm afraid. Sorry, Ramonda. But she just calls herself Ramonda Jan on Facebook and social media. And she asked me to co-host an online summit with her. I think that's when I think you invited me to that, and I was like, you came along. Yeah, it was fabulous. It was amazing. It was all online, so you could just, and if you couldn't watch it live, you could watch the catch-ups later, which was brilliant. And there was quite a few that you could kind of dip into. It was great. They were great, and a really, really broad subject. And really good topics. Yeah, really, and it was a good and from that she set up a membership platform and put all that kind of training into that. And now she runs, you're a member of the group, so every month and every week of every month they have a different topic and a different training which they run live into the Facebook group. And there's so many things you can learn on there, really interesting people,
and it's very supportive. I love that whole empowering each other.
It's really supportive. If you're going to post in Women in Business, you've got a problem, everyone is going to be there to kind of rally you along and give you the support you need. So it's a really, really fantastic community, so do check it out. Yes,
I was going to say everyone should go and check that out. I'll share links in the show notes so everyone can find it really easily. And then from that you've kind of set up your new coaching business for copy coaching, isn't it?
So I kind of knew
I'm going to say that again. It's the Copy Academy.
The Copy Academy is my Facebook
like
group.
Coaching.
Yes, exactly. So what I kind of realised is that I, done a lot of journalism and done a lot of writing and interviewing people, and that, I love that, but I wanted to help people. And I think when you would go freelance, I kind of missed that kind of working with people and connecting with people and talking to people. And the other thing I think is maybe a hangover from being in women's magazines. I love seeing women succeed, and I love writing about women being successful, and I love helping people. If someone comes to me with a problem, I love to sit down and get to the bottom of it. I'm not just let's have a cup of tea. I'm and I'm going to give you all the solutions whether you want them or not. And so I just kind of realised that I had all these skills that female entrepreneurs need, because they're all putting out all this content all the time, whether it's they're writing their blog or their website or their sales page or their newsletter, and there are real skills to writing things that get read and writing things that get people to do stuff. And I realised that actually I understood how to do it, and I could show people how to do it. And so that's what I do. I mean, so it's kind of a mixture of kind of classic writing and copywriting techniques, but also I'm kind of moving a little bit more into the whole idea of exploring your voice a bit more, and how to show up authentically, and build a community around who you are, so you're kind of what your message is, and you have clarity on your message. We've
got a little bit of a question later on that's slightly linked to that. I tell you, so I'm obviously part of your Facebook group, and something I think is really worth mentioning is that you do videos, and you will talk through people's issues. So you will say, right, tell me what your problem is this week or something, or you might theme it, and people will then comment, and then you will then go and do a video on those specific topics. So I think I asked for, in fact I did, it was about a month ago, I think, maybe. It was how to write compelling heads, which I think is another question we've got from my readers. And you did a video, and it was I have been writing for years, but you just put it into such a aha moment, basically. It's oh, right. And one of the tips that you gave, which I'm hoping is okay to share, was keep a folder of heads that grab you and make you open up that website or that blog post or whatever, and just keep a running list of them, so when you need to write a really compelling head, you can find it.
You've got a format.
Such a good idea.
It's all about formula. Headlines, obviously, there's more to good writing than it's just a formula, but that is the basis. You should never ever write anything from scratch, because otherwise you literally are scratching around and you've got nothing. But when you have a formula, I'm not saying that that's all what it is, but when you have a formula, you have the bones, and then you can put the flesh on it and get it dressed nicely, and it makes it so much easier. It takes that staring at the blank page. You're not doing it anymore, because you know what you have to do. You've just got to fill in the gaps, So and
the thing I think from Inside Stylist sort of point of view is that brutal honesty here, I got a C in my GCSEs after I retook them in English. And I write for a living, or I did. I was home editor for 5 years, writing every day, and I have no experience in writing. I was never taught how to write like this. I just wrote. But I had a sub-team. So if my heads weren't right, they would change them, and if the spelling mistakes were wrong, they would change them. And I think I'm probably quite typical of someone who's worked up through the ranks. You do work experience, you get a job, you move up. It's a bit like managing. No one teaches you how to run a department. You have just worked your way up, and you just get on with it. And I think writing is a very similar thing.
It is that. Even if you're like a features writer, I think it's something that you're constantly, it's almost like you pick it up by osmosis on the job, and you couldn't really, I remember if you asked me kind of 5 years ago how I write something, I couldn't actually tell you. It's just such an instinctive thing for me. And so when I realised that this is what I wanted to do, I had to literally sit down and figure out how I do it and what the secret was to it. And
I'm so glad you did.
Yeah, but there's probably, you find there's things that you do naturally, you don't realise you're actually doing it. You don't realise you're using a technique, but you are, because it's just something that you do every day. But then when you go the extra step and do actually learn more techniques and you start doing them more intentionally, it will
everything improve,
supercharge everything.
Yeah. I like that, supercharge.
And it will make you feel more comfortable as well. You're not kind of, you know that you're doing the right thing. You know that you know that you've ticked all the boxes, and that's very reassuring. It's not just a box ticking.
But it's that
strategy,
understanding that you're doing the right process.
You've got the structure there, and you've got the foundations there, and then you can really build on it and make it unique and your own and make it work. Yeah,
I think the very first, the very beginning of my career of writing, I remember being told that you don't write how you would write in school, how you're taught in school. So whereas in school you write this is a, you or there is a, you'd write there are, or you know, or they, whatever.
Use contractions.
You use it how you speak. And even when I type, in my head I'm saying it as I speak, but actually I still write it as I was taught in school, and I have to go back and change it all, and it's really interesting how that happens.
I know, it's like I'm writing, so therefore I'm formal. And you've got to start being comfortable with being conversational in yourself.
Yeah, and that, I think that takes a little while. It's quite an unnatural thing to begin with.
Yeah, it is practice. You've got to retrain your brain.
But it's so much more fun to write like that than to write formally, from an interiors point of view as well. So your Facebook group is open to, it's a private or closed,
it's closed,
but you can
ask
join.
To join.
So I will share the link in the show notes, and anyone who wants to join can just go and join.
Yeah, of course.
Essentially. And you're doing coaching as well. You're doing separate coaching to the course.
So I do the Copy Academy is just my free Facebook group, but I do at the moment just one-to-one coaching, and I have different offers which I release at different times, and so I might do like a one-to-one, look at your web copy and see how you can improve your brand voice, or make it a little bit more compelling, or make it convert, which is obviously what you want it to do, or I might look at your email nurture series, because obviously that's really important to try and get people to become fans and followers and fall in love with you.
Do you want to, I know what an email nurture sequence is, but do you want to just explain briefly what that is to people who might not be doing it, or might not even have thought that it's something they should be doing?
So whenever you, so obviously we all know we want to build our lists, it's really important, and then you might send out a regular newsletter to them. But whenever you're getting people joining your list, you don't want to just shove them into the middle of whatever you're doing at the moment. You want to kind of give them a little nurture and introduce them, introduce them to you in a controlled way, in a way so they know exactly everything they need to know about you, to kind of fall in love with you, understand your value, and then think, yes, I am going to carry on opening this person's emails. Or so it's kind of like a little kind of maybe 6 series of emails that they might receive over the first kind of 5-6 days of them joining your list, that is going to show them what value you have to offer, make sure that they know, yes, this person is the right person for me, and I did the right thing signing up to her, to her newsletter. You've got to show that you can deliver on everything that you promise, and then you can then funnel them into your mainstream newsletter, and then maybe you might want to kind of give them a little offer, or introduce them to other little parts of your empire, like social media, or
this website, this blog post might be relevant to you, that sort of thing. And also, many people might know this, but I'm just going to say in case you don't, you use an external program to do that. I use MailChimp for InsideStylist. So you basically write those emails in MailChimp, and then you say, right, I want this one to go out first, and then when they've had that one, the next day they'll get the next one.
Automation,
and it's all literally, if they sign up, it all gets automatically sent out over those 6 days. So, but it's really good. And I'm also going to mention this because I think it's been within kind of business sort of sense, it gets talked about quite a lot, but I don't know if in interiors it does. But your email list is your bread and butter. If Instagram suddenly goes down, or you get shadow banned or whatever, and you lose your 1,000 followers, if you've got an email list, you always have a way of contacting them. And if you have to set up a new account, you can email them all. So your email list is your
You should be funneling everyone to your email list, basically. You shouldn't keep your gold in Facebook's pocket.
I always like to push that, because I think we all get very wrapped up with Instagram, and I think it's actually really important to know that life outside of Instagram is also super important.
Yes.
So I asked the Facebook group for Inside Stylists some questions, or asked them if they had any questions for you to answer to do with copy, and we've got quite a few. So I think some of them repeat a little, but if I just read them out and then we'll go through them.
Some of them overlap, but it's fine.
Yeah.
They probably do in a little bit.
Yeah, because I think there is crossover in all sorts of elements, isn't there? So the first one is, I've put this one in from one of the videos. Can we talk about your copy checklist? So you've got, it's kind of like you were saying earlier, like your formula, as it were. So what's your copy checklist?
So this is, before you press publish on something, it's quite, I thought, somebody actually asked me this in the group. They asked me to put together a checklist that they could make sure that they've done all these things before. So I just came up with 7. I called my lucky 7 copy checklist. So the number 1 is that before you write anything, you have to know what the goal of it is, because everything has a purpose. So you've got this kind of call to action at the end. You want them to buy something maybe, or you want them to go somewhere or whatever, or check out a video or something. So you've got to have it very clear in your mind what that goal is. When you know what your goal is, then everything you write is going to feed into that and take you down to that call to action. Number 2 and number 3, I like to call the kind of bookends of every piece of copy. So number 2 is the compelling headline. I mean, the key to a compelling headline is that obviously it's got to be attention grabbing, and it's got to kind of have a promise of some kind of reward or benefit, because the whole purpose of a headline is to get someone to read. So that's why it's so important. And then obviously at the bottom, you want your call to action. It doesn't only have to go at the bottom. You can have another one broken up in a very long piece of copy, but
do you need a call to action in everything you write?
Yeah, I would have a call to action in every single thing, because
even magazine features and things.
Even if it's a magazine feature, you often have the
go see this person's website.
Yeah, so you always have. So that's their agenda. So your agenda is, I want entertainment for my readers, and their agenda for doing it is, I want people to come and look at my website. So that is the most important for the thing for the person you're interviewing, is that you have that call to action at the bottom to go and check out their stuff, or they've got this event here. So everything will have a good call to action. Every blog post, and also if you're not doing it, even if you're just putting out a bit of value or content, you're really missing a trick not putting your call to action in there, because all the time you're feeding people into other things to check you out more and explore your world. And so you really should be taking advantage of it. And so that's number 3. Number 4 is white space, and you'll know, particularly when you're reading on a screen, as people are mainly these days, actually, and also all your favourite magazines will always have lots of white space, because a really big sin of if you're trying to get anyone to read anything, they don't want dense copy, they don't want it to look overwhelming and boring. They want their eye to easily trip down to the bottom, and so the way you do that is shorter sentences, shorter paragraphs. You'll find, if you follow some of the people who actually get some really good copywriters to do their emails for them, you'll see that they often have like 1 sentence paragraphs or 1 word paragraphs. It's just all about drawing the eye down and making it easy to digest and less intimidating, because everyone's faced with so much copy. You want to be able to whiz through it. I've got on Inside Stylist, when I write anything, whether it's podcast show notes or a blog post or anything, I've got an SEO tool at the bottom, which is called Yoast, and it will list all the things I'm not doing correctly. And one is, there are too many words in this paragraph. You need to put, it's saying put more white space in. Your paragraphs are too dense. You need to break them up into, like, try breaking them up a bit, and it's exactly what you're saying. It's that make it easier to read. It's easier to digest it and actually it kind of makes you control your verbosity in a way. Like, you think, well, this needs to be a paragraph and I only need to say this in here, it does not need this amount of words. So, and then number 5 is it conversational? So like you were saying, you don't have to put cannot and will not and everything. you write as you speak, and make it chatty and use kind of like, it doesn't, even if you've got the most formal business, you can still have conversational copy, and you should have conversational copy, because no one wants to be doing business with a robot or with this kind of faceless. Yeah, exactly. So, is it conversational? Number 6 is your personality in there. And I know I said this in the video, it has to be personality driven, but it also, you have to make sure that it is your authentic personality.
And again, is that even in a magazine feature, if you're writing for someone else, or is it you need to take on the magazine's vibe?
It depends on the piece. So if you're a columnist for that magazine and you're writing something on your opinion is, it's going to be your personality, obviously, which has been put through that magazine's filter. Because if you're a particularly crazy person and you're writing for, I don't know, Saga magazine, you have to filter it to appeal to the reader. But then you might be writing, and then you might be writing something which is in the magazine's voice, so you have to adopt their style. So if you're writing like I don't know, presumably if you're writing a piece recommending some, I don't know,
bath towel rails or something.
Exactly. You're writing in the magazine's voice, so you have to adopt their style and their house style and their tone and their...
So it's about making it conversational rather than textbooky, essentially.
It's about making it conversational, more textbooky, and it is about having it a little bit more, maybe you might introduce a little bit of slang in there, or a little bit of, just something to show that this is a human writing it, and it may be a human writing in the voice of the magazine, but we are humans who produce the magazine with, who tell jokes and who can be a bit tongue-in-cheek or ironic, or so just don't be boring. Basically,
don't be boring with your copy.
And then the final one, which kind of leads into a little bit what we're saying about white space, is to cut your copy. And I always say try and cut it by half.
Yes.
Just because you probably won't be able to, but just because you probably can. You probably don't need it that long. And I always think, like, when you're trimming something down, you're making what is in there even more potent and more powerful, and you're delivering it with more punch. So whenever you edit a sentence, whenever you write anything, I always say just go through, look for every single unnecessary word. If I take this word out, does my sentence still make sense? Does it still have the same feeling? And if it does, you take it out and you don't need it. And you can do that with whole paragraphs and whole sentences. And you've got to murder your darlings left, right and centre, and it will make your writing far more powerful.
I've never heard that before. But I think if I write how I talk, and I waffle quite a lot when I talk, I think that's probably going to be the best tip I take away from today.
It's a very powerful thing when you start cutting your copy back and stripping your message back to the bare bones, because waffling just dilutes everything.
Number 2, how do you write compelling heads and sales, and how do you know when it's compelling to others and not just what you think will be compelling?
Right. So how do you know it's going to be compelling? Well, you have to know who you're writing for, and that's the first thing. So it's not about what you think is compelling. It's about what your reader thinks is compelling, and you have to know your reader inside out. And you'll know that whether you're writing sales copy or you're writing for a magazine, they will have an ideal reader, and they will know, Women at Home, you'll know what that person has for breakfast and what what they think of a certain celebrity. Like whenever we were like what do our readers think of celebrity? Don't they think she's a bit boring? Don't they think she's a bit plain? You know them really well, and when you know them really well, you know what is compelling. I think sorry, I'm interrupting you very briefly, but when I was writing for Women at Home, I had to think of a person. I couldn't just think of someone out there who liked this, that and the other. And I thought, well, my mother-in-law absolutely loves Women at Home. She is their reader. So whenever I wrote to her. Yeah. And then when I went to Woman, my mum liked Woman. So I would write to my mum. And it's that sometimes it's useful to find someone in real life really and write to that person. Yeah, write to one person, because we're always writing to one specific person, because that's when your copy takes on real power. So that's how you figure out what's compelling. So you're kind of, that everyone wants something from you. You have some kind of benefit. So every head should have a promise of some kind of reward or benefit. So it needs to be eye-catching and kind of stop them in its tracks, and it has to have some kind of promise of a reward or benefit. And you only know what that thing is going to be that motivates them, because you know your readers so well. So you know that they want to have the best. They want the most cutting edge style, because you know that they're that type of reader. So that kind of promise that reading the 5 ways that experts
Yeah, 5 ways to get hotel chic bathroom.
Exactly,
or,
exactly.
10 of the best.
So it's
cushions.
about knowing what's compelling is about knowing your reader, and you can't skimp on that research or that kind of knowledge. And it really depends who you're writing for and who that is. But it's always about formulating it with a promise of some kind of benefit. They have to be benefit driven.
Right.
Otherwise, no one is going to feel compelled at all to do it. Everyone is always asking, what's in it for me? What am I going to get out of spending this 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes reading this feature? And so they have to know from the outset, that's what I'm going to get from it. So a really common formula, so there's lots of formulas you can use, but really easy formulas are how to style your bathroom like a hotel or whatever, 7 steps to... they are really obvious what the benefit is going to be, because that is the outcome. I'm going to learn how to do this, or I'm going to get to this at the end of these 7 steps or something. So that's just a really simple way of showing how illustrating the benefits. There are obviously so many different formulas for headlines, so many different techniques. It could be like, the other thing is, funny enough, I'm going to talk about it in my live later, is about making people feel like part of a tribe, so calling on their tribal instincts. So maybe you're writing and they want to be part of a specific elite group, so they could be like best-selling interiors authors or something.
The podcast I did last week, it's not copy, but it's a very similar thing, was something like 10 traits of interior stylists.
Exactly.
So it's like the numbers and the tribe in there all in one go.
So it's calling on the tribe, so anyone
didn't know that they did, or whatever it was.
Exactly. So they're kind of saying, oh, I want to be that, or I am one of those, I relate to one of those, and so they think, oh yeah, this is for me. They kind of self-identify and self-select, yep, this one is for me. So that's another way of doing it. But there are so many techniques I could go on. I could teach like hours on headline writing, because it is actually such an important subject as well. It's so important, and keeping those swipe files and practicing your headlines couldn't be more important, because nothing else will get read unless you nail the headlines.
That's it.
So
I'm going to work on my podcast headlines now. Number 3, having never been taught how to do copy, is there a specific way to plan a feature, say a real homes feature or a feature on fireplaces, bathrooms, lighting, rugs, etc.? I know there should be a start, middle and an end, but I don't really know what that actually means or where to start. I think this is kind of like what I was saying earlier, is that we're never really taught how to write features. We just write them. And I don't think I've ever really planned something with a start, middle and end. I just think I write what I need to write.
Yeah. It does depend on the type of feature, how you would do it. And obviously, yes, everything does need kind of like an intro, which is going to...
Your bookends.
Set... Yeah, exactly. You need a kind of intro which is going to set the scene and kind of evoke all the feelings that you want them to feel to want to read your feature. I suppose that'd be kind of my... If I'm being very general, that's how you would do it. And then you'd kind of fill in the detail in the middle, and then you'd have some kind of sign off, which is going to get them off to go and do something, or, like a nice kind of friendly kind of natural close to it. But writing, I suppose how I would do a kind of a feature which is more like rounding stuff up, or as opposed to something that is maybe interviewing someone, is quite different. However, I think what you need to do if you're trying to figure out how to structure it, I would probably focus on, you really, really pay attention to your first paragraph, but you don't have to write that first at all. You don't have to worry about that. What I do whenever I'm writing a feature is I figure out exactly what I need to cover, and I just write whatever in any order. Whatever I have that is naturally coming out of me, I just do. And I often actually do it all longhand plan first, because I find I think differently when I'm doing that. And then you can kind of start shuffling it into some kind of structure, and you can see what naturally flows on to each other, so you can start seeing the links between each section. Always, and I think actually I always try to have an end in sight of how I'm going to end it as well. As you write it, it often evolves completely differently. But if you have some kind of idea of some kind of goal, some kind of quote you want to work towards, or some kind of like sign off, or call to action that you want to work towards, it kind of helps you channel your copy in the right way.
Gives you focus.
So you need to have a beginning, middle and an end, but it just really depends on the type of feature, because some features you might decide are going to be formatted differently. There might be lots of little snippets, with crossheads. That might be the most sensible way to format your copy. Whereas others are going to be more like running copy. And it really does depend on the magazine
Yeah.
you're writing for as
Yeah,
well. They will
it's very
tell
difficult to answer one general. You can't give a general
I mean, often
answer
they'll
for
have a structure and they'll say, I want you to write it like this.
Yes,
But
actually,
if
quite a
you're
lot of
doing-
magazines give you very, very
They're
tight
very specific.
copy specifics.
But if you're doing a blog, you've got to decide, is this going to come across better in a Q&A? Is this going to come across better in little broken down headlines with little tips? You've got to think about the reader and think, how are they going to get the best out of this feature? What's going to be the easiest way for them to digest this information and actually want to read it all? And there are so many different formats of doing it, and I would look at other people who are doing it well and have a little file and copy them. Not copy their content,
but copy their
structures. Because that means you'll start to get a feel for the best way to present different pieces of information.
Yeah. Do you know what this feels like? This feels like when you're at school and they say you'll be much better at English if you read more. It's like, I've got to go and read more.
But it's true. You do have to educate yourself.
I'm going to tell my daughter that now. I have to read more. Number 4, top tips for press releases, please.
Oh.
So I was quite interested in your some of the videos you've done for questions that have come through on your Facebook group, that people have asked you to do lots of different things like branding copy and sales copy and press releases, and it's how you can literally turn it all into your copy into whatever you need it to be. So press releases is obviously like encouraging people to
sales.
Yeah, it's mini sales. Yeah,
page,
exactly.
Really is a sales page. It's the same techniques. You're selling your idea, your story to a journalist, or your product to a journalist, and you have to approach it in that way, and you have to use all the compelling copy skills. Particularly, also you're writing for somebody who is a writer as well, and they get so much coming in. I can't tell you know, Emma, you get completely bombarded with people wanting a piece of you to use a piece of them, and it's easy to become very blasé and very not even read stuff.
Do you know what? I doubt very much if I'm alone here, but if I don't see an image of something that I am being shown immediately, if it's not at the top of I don't mind if there's a PDF I have to open, but if I don't see an image of this product they're selling me, I won't even read it.
No,
because actually I'm doing a visual feature. I'm using a product in a shoot. I need to see it.
Yeah,
and if it's tons and tons of copy, I quite like the backstory, but that can come later.
You've got to think
too many words.
What are you selling, and what's the best and quickest way to get this across? And actually, if you're selling I don't know, wallpaper, or you're trying to promote something, a photograph is
key.
What's the word? What's the phrase? A picture can tell 1,000 words. I can't remember what it was. Anyway, but that's so important. But then obviously within a press release you also need to get all the information across so that they can do something with it and they know who you are.
I suppose it's a fine line as well, because you want to know the price and what it is. And the person who sent this question in, I know that she has artisan. So actually you want to get the information about that artisan, because if I'm writing about them and it's all about artisan designers, I don't want to have to go back and ask her for that. I'd like that there.
Yeah.
But it's that whole...
Maybe it's about tailoring your press release though to the specific department that you're going to, because the other thing is, the big mistake people make is sending the wrong thing into the wrong department. So... for example, I worked on features and people would send me in something about food products and I'm not going to get something in the food pages. However, I might be interested in the backstory of your company. And so, the press release you are sending to the food editor or the features editor are two very different beasts, and you've got to tailor your copy. You've got to know, it's about knowing your market. It's exactly the same thing. You know who you're writing for and give them what they need to know to be compelled and want to find out more. Making sure you're sending it to the right person. And then all the same things with compelling copy. Have a head and a cell that's going to be compelling and make them want to read on. Have imagery, of course, that's really important. And then also have contact details. That's your call to action. Have them really easy to find. Don't have them scouting about, trying to find your email address or whatever, or something in your logo, or having to Google you. Have it really clear. This is the person you need to speak to, and this is their name, and this is their telephone number, and this is all the ways that you can contact them, and this is our website if you want to find out more. And also, there's a bit of a rule of one page press release if you can, and maybe a couple of images separately, because you don't want to be ploughing through.
No, and if you're getting hundreds a day, which I think most people do. you don't have time. You just won't. You won't even look at it.
You don't have time. And then that's the other thing is, if you really have sent it to the right person and you think it really is the type of thing that they're going to feature, is kind of, don't be afraid to follow up with a very non-pushy call, because I do think, I don't know if you agree with me, but you do have to be a little bit persistent to be featured, because because everyone's got so many emails coming in, you want to make sure they've seen it. And having a conversation is so powerful. As in a phone conversation. Yeah, phone conversation. Yeah, and making that connection. If I want something to happen, I will phone someone, because people don't phone in general. They just send a quick email. Yeah, which we can ignore. Exactly. It's so much more powerful when you speak to somebody and you kind of make that build connection. That relationship. And you don't know where the conversation's going to go, do you? So you're going, oh, you live in Beckenham, I live in Beckenham. There's a lot of that going on. Yeah, exactly. Surprising coincidences, and people want to work with people they like. Yeah, exactly. And so, number 5, when creating content and you're faced with a blank page, mind goes blank. How to constantly find that initial spark or topic. I was thinking about this subject actually, because I don't believe in... Well, I do believe in writer's block. There totally is something called writer's block, but it's not necessarily that you can't write. It's that you've got something is... there are lots of reasons people can't write, and it's often like if they're writing personal stuff, they're not quite comfortable sharing or whatever. But the truth is, if you have got to write something for work, you've got to get on to write it. So, I could say, I'll go for a walk and see if the bee strikes on this, but that's just procrastination rubbish. You've just got to start writing, get something down. So the first thing I would say is, you're sitting there, there's something you want to write. Well, the first thing, let's go back to our copy checklist. What's your goal of your piece? So that's a really good place to start. What is it you want them to do? What is the one thing that you want them to take away? And write that down. And then, maybe just start brainstorming little sentences and little snippets, because I think a lot of people feel like they have to start from the beginning and finish. But you don't. I very rarely write chronologically. Sometimes I do, but mainly I remember when my first job, and I was really being kind of schooled in how to write a feature. I can remember sitting staring at this blank page, and I could rewriting this sentence 3 million times. And my boss said to me, "Don't start with the sentence. Don't start with the first line. Start with the first line you can write." And that's what you've got to do. And the first line you can write might be the last line. It might be the middle line. It might be, just all these little nuggets, all these little things just start kind of floating at you, and then slowly you'll find the structure. But it's never going to happen unless you actually start writing. So you've got to just go, swallow it, just do it, and go, and just do it. Yeah, that's how you do the Nike thing. Yes, exactly. The next question is, how do you get your message across in a short caption? Quite often when we're doing, say it's a real home feature, and you've done the body copy, which is essentially the interview with a homeowner, and then you have to do captions that tell more of the story about the bathroom or about the living room. So you might only have 30, 40, 50 words. I think... Well, don't try to be clever. I think people often feel like when they're writing they need to be clever, but actually you don't need to be clever, you need to be understood. That's very good. That's more important than anything else. I often find, if I write something and I'm particularly proud of it and I'm pleased as punch that I've written this really funny, cheeky, clever thing, I always end up having to cut it, because it's not, it's not about being clever, it's not about writing beautifully or having people go, "Oh, wasn't that really well written?" It's about getting your message across. So that would be my advice: is, what really simple. I mean, you're not necessarily captioning the photo saying this is a photograph of a bath, is it? You're trying to give some of the story, add some value. Yeah. So you think, what really simple message can I encapsulate into one sentence? And there's only one thing you need to say. Don't try to make it complicated. If you're having lots of ands and buts and whatever in it, you just want one very quick statement. So it's a very hard thing to describe how you do it. It's just about practice, and it's about making sure it's the rule of one message, one sentence, one idea, one sentence. Keeping it simple like that, keeping your language very, very simple. Don't stray into using jargon. And I'm sure there's jargon within the kind of stylist industry. Yeah. Use the words that your readers would be reading, and so I don't know how helpful that is. No, it's very helpful. I like the one word, one sentence, what did you just say? One sentence. So one message, or one idea. Sentence. And actually that goes across with a lot of things, like if you're doing kind of like email marketing or something, you say, one message, one email, don't try to get them one call to action. as well. You know, don't give them lots and lots of places and things that they could do. Keep it really simple and focused.
Yeah. No, I think that's a very good tip. Never heard that before. Number 7, are there any tricks to doing an interview, which is often an interiors celeb, eek? Is there a way to make it amazing? Sometimes I do them via email, but often it's over the phone, and I want the interviewee to feel like it's a good interview.
Yeah.
Were you taught how to interview?
No.
You just kind of work it out?
You kind of get a little bit of coaching on the job, you know, and then you get told off for doing something wrong, and then you
never do it
again.
again.
That's not how you're supposed to do it. I think I was just thrown into the deep end, actually. I had to just you start off by interviewing, like I probably interviewed like a pig farmer first, for all I know. They don't really care. I'm not checking their style, but the most important thing, it's very hard to get a good feature, I think, from an email interview, because without doing a lot of backing and forwarding, I would say actually always try to do it on the phone or face to face if you can. I do loads on the phone, in fact, so you know, don't feel like you're missing stuff. But obviously, when you're face to face, you get the extra. Yeah,
that's why I do these in person, because actually, I think it's a much better.
And also, if you end up with because you often see first person ghost in a lot of the women's magazines, and if you get someone who doesn't speak, you're really screwed. So if you're at least in person, you've got kind of like things that you can. You know, you can start painting the picture.
It's a lovely sunny day, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, I can't say. Anyway, so what I would say is what you need to do to prepare for an interview, is research is the most important thing. It doesn't matter particularly if you're interviewing someone very well known, because there will be tons of interviews that they've had and tons of things written about them, and they will be so insulted and so bored if you ask something that is information that is easily got. So what you're basically trying to do is get them to say something that they've not said to anyone else before, and it doesn't matter if it's a subject that they've talked about a lot, and you know, everyone wants to talk to them about, you know, that particular thing. You've got to get that extra thing. So you've got to know everything that they've said about everything and everything they've put out there. So that's the first thing you need to do. And even if it's someone who's not well known, it'd be amazing how much information you can get from someone. I mean, you can stalk from someone. And, you know, and also it makes them feel automatically, oh yes, I'm important in your life. You've taken the time to prepare for my interview, and that puts you off on a really good foot when they know that you know them. Because there's a massive ego bash for them if you're asking really easily. It's easy to find out. It's a waste of your time.
And also anyone who wants to read that interview will have probably seen it already anyway. So
that's a massive waste of your time if you don't research. You spend a lot, you know, I'd spend hours on research, and it's so easy now. You don't have to go through cuts and go down to the library to find all these stuff that you research to do. You can just go online. So that's the first thing. The second thing, obviously you want to know what the goal is of your feature. So I would write down maybe 10 questions that you've got there as backup, 10 things that you know you either definitely want to know and have to ask, or 10 things that you know are going to spark some kind of interesting, obviously they have to be open-ended questions. So you have them as backup, but you don't have to stick to them if you don't.
So if it goes off on a tangent,
you can go on it, but you have something there. When there's a silence, you've got something you immediately go to. And 10 questions is going to keep you going for even if it's an hour-long interview, you know, you're going to be good with that. And then the other bit of advice I would say is, once you've done all that, which is going to help you kind of engage and build a rapport from them, and you feel like you know them and they feel like they're respected, and obviously you're being very friendly to them and helping them to open up, is that I think this is a mistake that I definitely made in the early days, and I can remember being told off for it, is that they will say something really interesting, but then, or even potentially interesting, and you don't pull on the thread. You don't push them. And it doesn't matter if you're going down a dark alley and they're not going to say anything, but you have to explore. You can't let anything rest, because when your readers are reading, if you don't ask the question that they're thinking, they're going to be so annoyed. And so you've got to pull on every thread, and you've got to be really alert for anything that could be a little nugget that's going to take you off. Take you off. And that's going to be the thing that's going to make your feature different. That's going to make your interview really sing, is having your ear open for those little telling details, which you can then jump on and go down that route and find something really interesting.
Do you think that's a skill that can be learned? Is it like a practice? The more you do it, the easier it gets. Sort of thing.
I think actually you do have to have a feel for people and be good at engaging with people. And I think it's an instinct that you grow and you kind of become, hearing the story. You can just it's something that you pick up.
Yeah.
And
I suppose it's when someone says something and you think, oh, I wonder what they did then.
And you
need to ask them when you think that yourself.
Don't sit there wondering, and that's the other thing. Don't be afraid to ask, because
they can say no.
They can say no.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, the worst thing was going back and saying to your editor, oh, and what did they say? What did you ask about so-and-so? Oh, no.
Yeah.
You know, I'd be much rather ask and then be insulted or tell you I'm not comfortable talking about that than go back and say, actually, no, I didn't ask that question. Yeah. Because also then you can address it, say, you know, for example, if you're interviewing a famous interior celebrity type and you say...
You've said that. Everyone is thinking of the same person right now.
Exactly. And you wanted to ask them a bit about their personal life. And she wasn't up for it. You could then say,
and she'd make that very clear.
You could, and you can then say,
we'll move on to the next one or something.
But you can even say in the copy, she doesn't like discussing this subject because so she's very private. And at least you've addressed it, and your reader's not thinking, well, hang on a minute, I want to know about this. Yeah. You know, at least you've kind of pushed that button, and they think, oh, okay, right, I'm not annoyed with you now. You did try. Oh, good for you for trying. You know, that kind of thing. So
yeah. You're very brave.
Yeah. I tell you what, I felt very nervous about having to ask people things, like having to ask about, you know, do you take HRT and things like that, because I've been told I've had to ask it.
And thinking, were people uncomfortable talking about it, or did they just go for it? I'm a very open person. I like to talk about all of that
it's very different. You get all types of people, and you know, some are very closed and massively cagey, and others, my goodness, they're telling you everything.
Yeah, that opens the floodgates. I don't need to know about your sex life, just the pills you're taking.
but yeah, so anyway, you've just got to really
that's really good. Yeah, I love that.
Do it. Obviously, you know, while maintaining a sense of respect, I always did maintain, because you don't want to break your rapport with them.
No.
You know, you can ask it in a certain way. And obviously it has to be relevant to what you're talking about, obviously.
We won't be asking about HRT when we're looking at
You're not going to have that problem. I think you're going to be okay.
That was very good. Is there an online subbing service? My blog posts are always riddled with typos and it drives some of my readers nuts. But I'm not a sub, I'm a creative, looking for an affordable sub-checking service.
I don't know is the answer to that, because...
It's like someone needs to do this. It would be brilliant.
It would be brilliant. I don't know whether Fiverr maybe has something like that.
Yeah.
But then you do have spell check on your computer, so there's absolutely no excuse for putting copy in there without
Grammarly. I don't know when this came up in the Facebook group. Someone mentioned Grammarly.
I've never heard of Grammarly.
So Grammarly is it was actually advertised on TV recently.
Oh, really?
It's exactly as it's spelled, and it basically is like a little green dot, and every time you spell something incorrectly, it puts a green line underneath it, and it's a bit like spell check. You can turn it on and off, but it does the grammar as well as the spellings.
Excellent.
And it is brilliant, but it is also American. Even when you switch it to England, it's like accessorize has a Z
in it,
instead of an S. Is that right? Or exercise, or whichever, words that have a Z and not an S, they're always mixed up. But you just have to be aware of that. Yeah. So that's a really good option. But some subs out there who want to earn a bit of extra money.
I'm sure there is. If you do, or like even you might have contacts on your,
if there's some assistants who want to pre-read something.
Stylist. Is there anyone you know any subs who want to do that?
In there. There's a couple of
subs. I'm really lucky. I've got a sister who is a sub, so I just go to her if I ever need to. But I think it's a really good practice to be able to do it yourself, because imagine how much money you're saving if you don't have to get everything subbed and spell checked. Yeah. Actually, blogs don't have to be grammatically perfect. We're not talking about Oxford English.
Coming back to her and driving
spell check. I just I would. You probably could find a sub who just want that for a quick job. Yeah. There's actually also another, and it's probably a bit more like book publishing, called Readsy, and I know there's lots of kind of subs and stuff like that on there, but it's more like for people who want to publish books, but you'll probably if you could find someone who could read spell check, proofreader. You want a proofreader, don't you?
Yeah, exactly.
But maybe Fiverr is one to look at. I don't know, but then I don't know if I trust them.
I've just actually approached someone to give me some feedback on some of the website on Fiverr. Actually, I've had a really good response. Fiverr it's spelled Fiverr, and it's basically it's an American platform where you can find people to do practically anything, and you can get people to design logos or
book covers. Or,
absolutely anything. But they will write copy for you. But there will definitely be someone who does some form of subbing on there. And obviously it's a Fiverr, and it's a Fiverr as in American. But actually there's a booking fee, so I think it's $7, which is
and some of them do charge more or whatever. But that's the basic thing.
But it's another avenue you can go and check. Are there any real no-nos when writing copy? Are there things to avoid?
Being boring. That's the biggest no-no. And writing too formally. Using jargon. Not remembering to do kind of heads and cells and that kind of thing, and breaking up your copy. That's so important to think about structuring your copy. I think other people forget about that because it's all about the ease of your reader. It's all about trying to get your reader to read it. Yeah. And one of the things is remembering formatting and structuring and just making it look a little bit more visually appealing in terms of how the text actually appears on the page. But yes, boring I think is the biggest crime, and you need to do everything in your power to make it different.
There's no boring readers of this podcast, no boring listeners of this podcast, so they'll all be absolutely fine.
Yeah. And lacking personality, I think. Being a little bit too and
can you put too much personality in? Can it be a little bit too me? I suppose if it's a blog, it's your blog, so you can probably
obviously
be
you don't want it to be. You don't ever want it to be about me. You always want it to be about them. Yeah. So actually, but I think personality is one of the things that turns people off or turns people on, and I actually think when things do that, it's quite good, because then you're really kind of getting your ideal reader in your tribe, and that's what you want to do. You don't want, it's funny enough actually, I've been talking a lot because in Facebook groups, for example, if you're just getting numbers up and you're attracting people who are a little bit interested but not that interested, they're not your core tribe. They're getting presented with your copy, with your posts. Yeah. They're not interested, so they're not liking it or whatever. And then Facebook's thinking, oh, this is boring. I'm not going to show it to the people who really care, and it can really screw your algorithm up. And if you think about that, there's a big knock-on effect. It's watering down your reach. So
basically, don't put out on Facebook or Instagram or blogs. Don't put out copy that isn't good. Basically, don't put something out because it's Tuesday and you need to put something out on a Tuesday. Wait until Wednesday or skip a week and put out good content the following week.
And if it's if you're writing as you, be you, and don't be afraid and don't be apologetic about being you. I think people are attracted to personalities and authenticity. Don't try to be somebody else. Be you, and people will. The right people will come to you, and that's how you end up working with people that you love and who love you, and that's what we all want, really.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was saying earlier, you work with people you like, don't you?
Yeah, exactly.
We've got two more questions. One is cutting copy. Now, one of the videos you did, you might have already mentioned this before. In fact, you have already mentioned it before, but I have to just say that you said no one wants flabby copy. I thought that was so funny. So flabby copy is basically what you were saying earlier about cutting it down, rereading it, and cutting out words that are just superfluous, basically.
Yeah, and also ideas as well, that things, going off on little tangents and, anything that goes away from your kind of core. You want really
the goal that you're writing about. Lean, not flabby.
Lean, not flabby, that's what you want. So how to cut it? So, well, I reckon everything you write you can cut, and make it a little challenge for yourself. How much can I cut this back? And that what you're not losing the meaning and you're not losing the feeling, because obviously powerful copy has to make people feel things, and it's got to have some kind of emotiveness in there. So how much can you cut it without losing that? And it can actually become quite an obsessive thing. I love cutting stuff, and actually I will often find I'll write something and I feel like I've cut it to cut back the bare bones, and then I'll send it to somebody to look at, and then I'll open it, and then I'll cut it some more, and I have to send them another one, because even if you sit on something for a day, you'll see the extraneous stuff there. You'll see the stuff that's not working hard, because you become a bit copy blind when you're writing something.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Something you just said there is that when I write something, I try really hard to write it the day before I have to file it, so that I can come back to it the next day with fresh eyes, and then literally
you become blind
edit it and change it and cut
unnecessary
it.
stuff. You become blind to the words and the way you've repeated stuff, and also you become wedded to these kind of
you're happy about what you've done,
and then like that sentence, and then you realise you have to cut it, and then you might take it out and you realise it's so much better for it. It becomes, when you realise how powerful it can be to cut your copy, you'll want to do it more, and you should.
I've never consciously done that, so it's going to be quite interesting.
I reckon, if you aimed for half but achieved a quarter, it's going to help, and the more you do it, the better you'll get at it, and also the more you cut it back, then you can see whether your argument has a thread, you can see whether your story has a thread, you can see whether you're covering everything you need, because when everything gets lost in words, you can't really make sure that your message is crystal clear and really like on the ticket. So
I've got a friend who is on a course about, she's a children's, well, it's like a adult, was it teen author? Kind of like a J.K. Rowling sort of age range book. Yeah. And she had her first book completely written, and she literally cut it in half. And I remember thinking, but you've spent so long writing it and now half of it's gone. But it's literally what you're saying. It's like giving that, it's like edited content, isn't it? It's like
making
that
it potent
nice and tight and potent.
Yeah, I think so. I think
exactly what you're saying.
You're actually you're literally cutting the crap. That's what you are. And then you're making the really good stuff shine. So that's how you're going to feel like it.
Last question. What's your top tip for writing features? Is that vague? Is that too vague?
Top tip for writing features. I think emotion. I think that's the thing. All copy needs to stir emotion in someone. So you've got to, even if you're writing like a feature, which is, I think someone mentioned the best fireplaces or something, you are trying to stir an emotion in them. You're trying to stir an emotion of kind of, I want this, I need this. Or if you're writing kind of like about a beautiful home, you're kind of deciding what's the feel of this house. Maybe it's very romantic, or maybe it's very nostalgic, or maybe it's very fun. You're trying to like put that emotion across in your copy. So I think that is my top tip. You want copy with real soul and emotion, and that's what people want to read. People want to feel things, and when they feel things, they do things, and they follow you, and they love what you do. People want to have their emotions stirred in whatever way, and so make sure that your features are emotion rich.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. This has been massively helpful. I think people are going to get a lot out of this. So what's next for you?
Well, I'm just focusing on, so obviously I've got the Copy Academy Facebook group, which I am really working on growing. That's my big focus at the moment. I should just share that if you want to find Cate it's Catherine actually with a C, if you're trying to find Cate Butler Ross. But the Facebook group is called the Copy Academy. So if you put in Copy Academy, you'll find that. And your website is Cate, as in Cate, catebutlerross.com. So you can go and find Cate there and all the details about your coaching and the courses and everything. So that's my focus really, kind of one-to-one coaching. And then I'd love to anyone who feels that this is for them, and I'd love to see you in the group. Yeah, it's brilliant. Thank you very much. It's been brilliant. It's been great fun. Me too. Thanks for listening to the Inside Stylist podcast. You'll find all the details from today's episode over on the show notes at InsideStylist.com/Cate. Cate with the C. Until next time, bye for now.